The modern tech landscape moves at terminal velocity. Building a company today means competing against algorithms, automated agents, and rivals who never sleep. We have reached a point where the baseline for survival is sending Slack messages at 3 a.m. and grinding through the weekend. The expectation is constant output. In this environment, founders must walk into boardrooms and pitch abstract concepts, like an agentic compute economy, to stakeholders who have 5 minutes of attention to spare. Jensen Huang supplies the raw processing power that forces every sector to innovate faster. Autonomous cinematic AI tools promise to ingest a dry PDF and produce a fully animated, fluid documentary video in about half an hour. This chart maps presentation creation. Effort is on the x-axis, impact on the y-axis. Traditional decks sit here: high effort, moderate impact. Manual AI gives high impact, but high effort. The low-effort, high-impact quadrant belongs to autonomous cinematic AI, but it carries a specific risk. That risk exists because using an autonomous video tool requires you to surrender the role of creative director to a machine. You will save hours of production time, but if the AI outputs a neon cyberpunk aesthetic for a serious boardroom pitch, you have compromised your brand safety. The most common mistake users make when operating cinematic AI is trying to micromanage the visual output. They try to dictate exact hex codes or specific camera angles in the steering prompt. These systems are document-to-video generators. To get reliable results, you must feed the AI highly structured, video-optimized source documents rather than raw, messy text. For instance, instead of pasting a raw data table, you structure the document to highlight how the island of Anguilla generates massive government revenue from selling the .ai domain name. Because the AI ingests that structured document, it identifies the narrative hierarchy and creates a fluid, cohesive visual story based on that data. There is a trade-off. Generating that video takes over 30 minutes, and these tools offer no post-generation editing. If the AI misses the mark, you have to rewrite your prompt and wait another half hour. Since you lack direct editing control, you have to rely on thematic steering. Instead of commanding visual styles, you instruct the AI on the target audience's expertise level and the narrative stakes. You tell it to create a serious briefing for policymakers, and it selects the appropriate visual metaphors. This creates a visual experience where ideas flow together. The environment morphs organically to match the tone of the document, without you ever having to dictate where the camera goes. To succeed with this cinematic black box, you trade pixel-perfect control for narrative fluidity and contextual awareness. When brand safety is the priority, you pivot to the alternative workflow, the custom formula pipeline using manual generation tools. We leave narrative fluidity behind. This pipeline is about rigid precision, snapping individual, immutable assets into a locked configuration. This requires a strict 7-part prompt framework. You manually define the subject, style, lighting, camera, mood, environment, and detail level. Filling these exact variables strips the AI of its creative liberties and forces it into a strict execution role. When you control every pixel, specific aesthetics act as psychological shortcuts in the boardroom. Rendering your slides in a digital brutalism style projects foundational trust and permanence. It is a visual language for pitching heavy infrastructure or global policy. Alternatively, using a glassmorphism aesthetic projects cleanliness and modern interface design, which is effective when pitching B2B software products. There is an operational cost. Achieving this level of exact tone requires you to manually generate and stitch dozens of images together, costing valuable hours. The manual pipeline provides total brand alignment and visual authority, but shifts the heavy lifting of editing and animation entirely onto the user. Surviving the AI pitch landscape requires matching the correct generation pipeline to your specific boardroom constraint. This decision matrix solves that operational dilemma. It starts with one question: what is your primary constraint? If your primary constraint is a severe lack of time and you need narrative cohesion, route down path A to the cinematic AI tools. On this path, you accept minor visual inconsistencies in exchange for an engaging narrative that is delivered on time. Conversely, if your pitch is institutional, heavily regulated, or demands exact brand safety, route down path B to the custom pipeline. This path projects absolute authority and precision, but requires you to personally invest the hours to act as your own editor. The strategy is simple. Do not fight the tool's core architecture. Feed context to autonomous directors and feed formulas to manual generators. A strategist's real advantage comes from knowing exactly when to surrender control for speed and when to claw it back for authority.